Hello and welcome to SpyHards podcast, where your hosts go deep undercover into the world of spy movies to decipher which films make the knock list. But remember, this information is strictly for your ears only. I'm Agent Scott.
And I'm Cam the Provocateur. And Scott, get your head in the game, coleslaw.
Coleslaw? It's a hell of a nickname for a hell of a film we're going to be looking at this week. And we'll certainly be asking a lot of questions, including, does emoji stuff count?
Indeed.
Very deep questions coming your way later in the episode. But before we get there, we need to induct this week's SpyHards Diehards. Now, Cam, how does one become a SpyHards Diehard?
Yes, Scott, you can become a SpyHards Diehard by leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts.
Absolutely. We're trying to get people more involved here on the show. We thought this was a good way of inducting some new members every week. And basically, if you're leaving us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, we pick the best of the best and read them out here on the show. And speaking of, we'd like to induct our latest member, BER12, and they write, Yippee-ki-yay. This was a terrific listen. The hosts are well versed in the genre and researched on the films. He must have been listening to a different podcast. It is rare to hear a podcast with pointed critique and sound reasoning. No rambling or shooting from the hip here. These gents are funny and knowledgeable, truly enjoyable. Give them a rating and subscribe, but this message will self-destruct in 15 seconds. 15? They gave him a bit more time than usual, actually.
Yeah.
Is that enough time to write a review?
It depends who's writing the review.
That's very true. Brevity will save your life in this situation, by the sounds of it, folks.
That's right.
And, of course, the other way to support us, if you can, is to join us over on Patreon at patreon.com/SpyHards. Over 50 episodes there and some very low-tier options to help show your SpyHards colors. And before we head over to the film, make sure to stick around. Friday this week, we are joined by this week's film's second unit director and stunt coordinator, Mr. Garrett Warren. Alongside working on Ghosted, he's worked on films like Logan, Avatar, he's worked on Ready Player One, and that's just some in the last few years. But in terms of spy credentials, he's worked on films like Mission Impossible 3 and Spy alongside Ghosted. So yeah, a lot of fun to be had this week in our interview on Friday. But without further ado, let's head to the review. Now, Cam, I know you've been excited to talk about this film for quite some time, but before we can get to it, we need to introduce our guest. Now, I searched far and wide for a specialist to join us this week, and I was getting a bit agitated because I was sending our guests a lot of texts, and I was not getting a response. I felt like I was being left on red, but it turns out I was just sending emojis and they don't count. But when I sent an actual message, she stepped up, joining us for the 4th time on the show. It is the one and only Shayla Miller.
Hi, I am good, and I'm so excited to be here. You know what they say, 4th time's a charm.
Ooh. So I had to go and count this today because I thought it was the 3rd time. And I realized we'd used your voice in something else, and you were inserted into an episode, and so this is the 4th time. There you go.
That's fantastic. I love that. I'm so thrilled to be here.
It's great to have you back. I think the last time was the 355.
Yes.
Wait a second. We did, the Brosnan Roundtable on Her Majesty's Secret Service, the 355, and if you're saying her voice is inserted in something else, that would make it a 5th appearance.
Oh, well, you know what they say, 5th time's a charm.
And Scott can't do math. 4th, 5th, 7th, 100th. You're welcome any point here, Shayla. So we're glad to have you back on the show. And I think before we get to the film in question, what's been going on for you the last I think it's been about a year since you've been on?
Yeah, I've just been kind of doing my thing, working, kind of building plans for the next season of Sweet Time. The summer and the winter is always kind of busy for Chelsea, so we kind of just, are throwing around ideas, and then hopefully we'll start filming soon. But other than that, just kind of enjoying life, watching good, bad movies like I love to do, much like Ghosted. So You know?
Ooh, spoiler.
Oh, we're getting a tease here.
Oh, yes.
Well, there's not been a ton in the sort of spy movie world over the last year. The big milestone recently, of course, was No Time to Die, which I'm sure we spoke to you about last time you were on the show. But just, it was a big film, and it sort of left its wake when it comes to the world of spy movies, especially the world of James Bond. But, what are your thoughts on No Time to Die now you've been able to sort of digest it a little bit? Have they changed? Have they shifted?
Well, I don't know if they had shifted last time we spoke or not, but if they hadn't, they certainly have now. I kind of I watched it again and I don't really have a desire to ever revisit it. I kind of feel like I just don't think that they should have killed Bond. And I know it was new and invigorating and fun, but was it though? We just came out, we were in a pandemic and the invincible hero that we were supposed to, that gets through anything died because of a virus. And I was like, oh gosh, that's a bummer. I don't know. There was a lot of good stuff about it. But I don't think I don't really want to revisit it anytime soon.
Well, I'd love to know, Daniel Craig, as you said, is basically, his Bond is ashes at this point, but the wheels are ever so slowly turning on whatever the next phase of Bond will be. What would you like to see? Has anything kind of sprung to your mind, kind of as a reaction to the Craigs that maybe you'd like to see changed up?
Yeah, I kind of had the thought that it would be cool to take it back to the 60s and sort of just reinvigorate it that way, because I don't really think you can carry forward any of the actors from the Craig era, just because his Bond is toast, and so they kind of should also be toast. But if they don't go back to the 60s, I just think kind of getting back to some more fun, some more Roger Moore, Pierce Brosnan era, sort of just fun, just not so dreary. I appreciate the Craig era for what it is and what it was, and he was a great Bond and he had some great movies. I just think, getting back to some fun would be fun.
Well, I think they kind of took it to the furthest possible point when you are having Bond killed. And that movie was pretty inspired by Logan. And that was, the darkest, grittiest Wolverine story we'd ever seen. And, it kind of hit that point. And then when we see Wolverine next, he's going to be in Deadpool 3 in a comedy. So maybe it's time to, hey, we've had Bond face death. Let's get back to Bond embracing life a little more.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Bond follows trends, like you just said, kind of went after Logan. So keep following Logan. Sure. Let's go for some more fun. But maybe also, I don't know, something new and fresh, new ideas. Don't be the Dark Knight. Don't, just come up with a fun Bond film. If they have to take years to figure it out, that's fine, I guess. Just make it good.
Bond famously does love jumping on trends, and the trends that are big, the ones that are kind of changing the industry. So I guess my question to you is, how is Barbie going to influence the next Bond?
Oh, please. I would love it to so much. Put him in a pink tuxedo. Let's go. Let's go. I loved that film. I thought it was so well done. Yes, please. Make Bond Barbie. Let's go.
Let's do it.
She should be the Bond girl.
Well, never know.
You get Margot Robbie in a Bond film, I think you get a lot of butts in seats.
It's true. Absolutely. My butt would be sitting. I'll tell you that.
I'd be standing and clapping the whole time, but that's I'd probably get dragged out of the theater for that, to be fair. And it's also interesting. You talk about Barbie, but one of the things the Barbie film does is it's quite meta in it. In its sort of, it's very introspective about sort of the branding and marketing, and maybe that is the way Bond goes now and becomes more it's kind of more witticisms, more self-referential humor, that sort of stuff. It could definitely go that way, but I think if you look at the 27 films, 25 films, if you want to argue with me, I don't care. 27 films. I think, apart from 5, they've all been mildly funny or fun.
Yeah.
So maybe let's just go back to the percentage that seems to be quite popular that people talk about, the fun times. And if you look in trends in cinema, I mean, there are a lot of plot-based thrillers out there and that sort of stuff, but there is a lot more fun in cinema now. We're not in those grim, dark post 9/11 days with the Bournes were coming out. That sort of, we've kind of moved on a little bit now, and we're seeing things like Barbie make the most amount of money this entire year.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time to have a bit of a giggle at the pictures again.
Agreed.
Or Across the Spider-Verse as well. Like, these movies are the ones that are really connecting. So, and they're very energetic, very hyperkinetic in a lot of their visual style. So I think there's a lot you could do.
Bond into this. I just actually I don't want a metaverse, multiverse Bond thing. Let's not have Dalton and Brosnan do a Avengers portal scene. We'll probably just never have that, please. I don't ever want to see that.
Well, you're kind of
You could do it as like a joke.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing. I'm kind of selling it.
If Dalton showed up out of a portal in the middle of the movie, you would be applauding harder than if Margot Robbie showed up.
That's true.
Maybe. Like, he comes out, he's like, on your left. It's like, oh, what? If Brosnan steps out, it's like, for England. It's like, ah! Everyone's just cheering. Sure. And then the other thing as well, just before we get to the film, there's been some films over the last year since you were last on the show, Shayla, in terms of spy movies. Have any jumped out at you that you've caught over the last year?
Was Gray Man in the last year?
I think it was.
That's one of the ones I was going to suggest if you couldn't think of any. But yeah, The Grey Man was, and in terms of like a streaming film, which is kind of what we're talking about this week, that's also a perfect thing to compare against.
Yeah, that is the only one that's coming to mind for me. And I had fun with that one. You know, even though everybody seemed to hate it, I once again had fun with the good bad movies.
And where did you stand on Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol? Or not? And where did you stand on Mission Impossible Dead Reckoning?
The fourth film in the franchise.
I actually have not seen Dead Reckoning.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I haven't gone to. Yeah, Barbie was like the one movie. I saw Barbie and I saw The Last Haunting of Venice.
So did Scott and I.
I haven't seen that many. It was good.
We saw it together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. I had a good time with it. But yeah, like I haven't really gone to the movies.
Well, that's fair.
How exciting. What a life.
I'd love to see Kenneth Branagh as M. I think that would be amazing.
Yeah.
With the mustache.
Yeah.
Of course.
Absolutely.
Well, we teased it, but let's get to it. Cam, what are we talking about?
We are talking about Ghosted from 2023, starring Ana de Armas and Chris Evans.
This is, I think I said this last week when I queued it up. Is it our most recent film we've ever tackled?
No, I think Spy Kids 5 is now, but that was one where we didn't plan it necessarily in advance. We realized that no one would care about that movie after about 3 or 4 weeks, and so we decided to bump it way up in the watch order.
And it turns out no one cared about it in its first week either.
Behind the scenes, yes, that's true.
Womp womp. Where's that slide whistle, Cam?
Yeah, I don't know.
It's fine. Well, yeah, Ghosted is here, and let's talk about it. But for those of you who haven't caught the film and are not aware of what Ghosted is and hadn't seen that trailer that kind of went viral for a little while as well, here is your synopsis. Ghosted. Finding that special someone can be a real adventure. God, that's so corny. Salt of the earth, Cole, falls head over heels for enigmatic Sadie. It feels like AI wrote this.
The movie or the synopsis?
Well, that's a good question, Cam. But then makes the shocking discovery that she's a secret agent. Before they can decide on a second date, Cole and Sadie are swept away on an international adventure to save the world. Sure.
Dun,
Yep.
dun, dun.
That was the film. Cam seems unimpressed. Talk about spoilers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let's throw it out there. I hadn't seen it before watching it for this review. Shayla, had you caught it? You mentioned you only ever seen, I think, the Grey Man this year.
Yeah, I hadn't watched Ghosted. No, not until I got the call from the SpyHards to hop on board. So I thought, okay, let's get Ghosted.
Okay, that's. I mean, it's Ana de Armas and Chris Evans. It's not the biggest of asks in the world.
It's true. Like they're fantastic, and actually they work together a lot, which is kind of cool too. Like with Knives Out, Grey Man. Like it's cool to see them in another film together.
It's interesting though. We have 3 spy movie fans here, and Ghosted was a major release. Like this was not a small little quiet movie released, to the corners of the internet. This has 2 massive stars, and it is interesting to me that None of us watched it when it was released, and there was a pretty big marketing push from Apple to push, to get this movie released. And I kind of feel like that was the story of Ghosted. Like, I almost feel like audiences ghosted.
Oh, that's so poetic.
Thank you.
Oh, nice.
Well, I can one up the sadness if you'd like.
Uh-oh. Okay.
A little behind the scenes here, folks. There was a point in time where we were going to do a declassified episode for Ghosted.
That's right. I forgot about this.
Yeah. And we were contacted by an agency, like we are for our declassified episodes, and offered us interviews. They offered us, at one point in time, they offered us interviews with Ana de Armas and Chris Evans.
Yeah.
Whoa.
Can you believe that, right? That we could have had them both on the show.
I feel like this was a case, too, where you were going to do it solo because the times that were available, like, I couldn't do it because of work. So it was going to be like a Scott one-on-one with the stars of Ghosted, yeah.
That's a lot of pressure.
Hey, I was looking forward to it, and they also offered us an interview with the director Dexter Fletcher as well. So I was like, yep, I'll have everyone. Let's go full Ghosted, go Team Ghosted, right? And then they ghosted us.
Whoa.
Yeah.
And so I did some digging, and it turns out that they pulled most of their marketing for this film in terms of the interviews with cast. There are a couple of like BuzzFeed, Yahoo type interviews they did online that are on YouTube. You can look them up, but you won't find like them on most major podcasts or anything promoting this film. They pulled almost all of it. The only thing they did do was some interviews with Dexter Fletcher, the director, in the end. But yeah, they got wind of it not going down well with people, or something happened behind the scenes, but they pulled everything. And yeah, they genuinely ghosted us on Ghosted.
Wow.
I wonder if it was a response to when the embargo went down for reviews, and they weren't thrilled with the response they were getting critically, and just decided that they didn't want to march the actors out there at that point. I don't know.
What a bummer, though. Like, stick with the ship, even though it's going down,
Yeah.
That would have been cool to have them on the show regardless. Like, because they could have talked about their experience and what fun they had, despite whatever the film turned out like. That's a bummer.
It's a shame. I understand that there's like payments and stuff. You don't want to necessarily pay these people to get like hair and makeup and things like that for a whole day and sit in front of cameras to talk to nerds like me. Totally get it, but there was a little bit of disappointment, and it left a little bit of a sore taste in my mouth that they sort of put it out there and then withdrew it at the last second, like a high five that someone pulled away because I'm too slow. It it hurt me a little bit. So that's actually the reason why I never watched it until now.
Well, I don't blame you. I can't believe they ghosted you. They could have at least sent you a message just to say sorry.
Even an emoji would have done.
Seriously? Actually, no, wait. Emojis don't count.
Emojis definitely count. They definitely count.
No, they do count. I agree.
And I'll just say, like, I didn't watch it. I didn't have the broken heart over the interview that you did. For me, it was just like it came out and the like complete lack of buzz, or I listen to a lot of film podcasts. No one was saying check out Ghosted. It was just kind of like, I mean, it was very quiet, and so I thought, I'll catch up with it when we cover it on the show.
Which is, I'm assuming there are thousands of people that are waiting for us to do the review so they can then watch the film as well.
I would assume.
Based on how many of the reviews there are on Letterboxd and IMDb.
Yeah, obviously.
Well, Cam, how did we get Ghosted?
Okay, so the movie emerged basically from a pitch by writers Rhett Reese and Paul Wernick, who are a pair of writer-producers. They're a team, and they kind of got their start in the early 2000s with the reality spoof show, The Joe Schmo Show. That's difficult to say quickly. The Joe Schmo Show.
Try say that 3 times.
Now, that's not what made them famous, though. That's kind of what got their foot in the door. They became shortly after known as the Zombieland guys. They were the writers of Zombieland. And that really kind of kicked open the door for them to become go-to studio guys. And so since then, they've written movies like G.I. Joe Retaliation, the 2 Deadpool films, Life, and 6 Underground. They work with Ryan Reynolds a lot. And this was their follow-up to Spiderhead, which was a fairly recent film from the director of Top Gun Maverick, Joseph Kosinski. And that one starred Chris Hemsworth. So this was their follow-up to that, and they developed this story and sold it off to Skydance Entertainment, and Apple acquired it shortly after. They have a story credit and a screenplay. So they had basically what happened was they sold this, they had a screenplay, but I think once it was acquired by Apple, that's when it was developed further.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what the original concept was, if it changed at all. Probably not. It was probably pretty similar, but they're very, very irreverent in their work, so I do wonder if it was maybe a little quirkier in their initial take. I have no way of knowing.
It involved ghosts originally.
Possibly, yes. And I think it's around the point that Apple acquires it that Chris Evans comes on as a producer, because he plays a major role in putting this movie together. And he's the one that brought in Dexter Fletcher. And Dexter Fletcher was a child star, started out in the early 70s. His debut was in 1973's Steptoe and Son Ride Again, which I've never heard of, but in 76 he was in Bugsy Malone, which was a big movie of the time. Jodie Foster was in it as a kid, and it was like a spoof of gangster movies with kids, where they had machine guns that shot marshmallows and things like that. And then over the span of kind of his young life, he appeared in movies like The Long Good Friday, The Elephant Man, The Bounty. As he got older, The Man Who Knew Too Little, Lock, Stock, and Two Smoking Barrels, Band of Brothers, Layer Cake. He's in a lot of Matthew Vaughn films.
Mm-hmm.
And he also pops up in this movie as Raoul, who is the man in the trunk at the very end of the film.
Oh, fun. I love a good Easter egg.
Mm-hmm.
I did read that he was in the film, but I never figured out where. So there you go. You don't really see his face, I don't think.
No, they apparently played a prank where Chris Evans locked him in the trunk for 3 or 4 minutes or something like that.
All those guys goofing around on set.
Ghosted. A lot of cut-ups going on there.
I watched the blooper reel for this earlier, and it's 3 minutes long, and 1.5 minutes is dancing.
That's always the case. I can't stand blooper reels anymore. It's just people dancing.
I mean, I'm not sure I want like an Oliver Reed level, like losing their mind and swearing at everyone. Like that's probably a bit too far, but I don't know. I quite like seeing actors stumble over their words and like, or like, the reel for Liar Liar is the one that always gets me, because it's Jim Carrey doing alternate takes and people like trying to throw things at him to get him to break. That's fun to watch. People just doing dances because they get like tongue-tied just doesn't do it for me.
I agree. That Liar Liar one, oof, that's a good blooper reel.
I watched the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 blooper reel the other day, and a lot of dancing. And cutting up. To me, like, if it's not going to be like a Liar Liar, give me like a Jackie Chan blooper reel where it's like him breaking his legs.
Yeah, I just want to see Jackie Chan break his legs.
He does it a lot.
Cam Smith.
Yeah, he does it a lot, people.
Okay.
So Dexter Fletcher moved into directing in 2011 with a British drama called Wild Bill, which I don't know made much of a dent over here. Are you familiar with it, Scott, at all?
No. Tame Bill is all I know.
Okay. It was about a parolee who I think like kind of becomes involved in kind of an unconventional family unit or something like that. It did get good reviews, and it kicked open the door for him to start directing, because then he did Eddie the Eagle with Taron Egerton, which was kind of a minor hit. He also was the guy brought in to fix Bohemian Rhapsody, because Bryan Singer left that production, just kind of disappeared into the night at a certain point, and so Dexter Fletcher was who the studio brought in to carry that movie to the finish line. And he would also, of course, do Rocket Man, which kind of made his name as a director.
He also did, well, this is more of a British reference, but Sunshine on Leith, which is the story of the Proclaimers for North Americans and people around the world. They're the people who did 500 Miles.
I love that song.
Oh, how I enjoy hearing that song in a bar every place I went in Australia.
But ironically, you traveled 500 miles to get there to hear it.
It's true. No kidding. And so, yeah, this was Dexter Fletcher's follow-up to... He did a couple episodes of the recent TV series The Offer, which was about the making of The Godfather.
Oh.
And I heard it was terrible, but, yep, it was a very star-studded prestige project.
I mean, I'm not even a fan of Part 3, so I doubt I would have cared about the TV show accompaniment.
I mean, the making of The Godfather, it was a very interesting era, but I just heard the show was not particularly strong. Yeah. And so Dexter Fletcher said, like, what inspired him with this material was he really loved Raiders of the Lost Ark and Romancing the Stone and those sort of adventure films from the 80s. And so that's kind of what he was looking at. But Chris Evans and him brought in 2 other writers to work on the script, which brought it to basically the finished form. And that was another writing team, Eric Summers and Chris McKenna. And they kind of began their careers in different places. Chris McKenna did the 2008 animated film Igor that was kind of a bomb, but it's like an animated take on the character of Igor, obviously. And Eric Summers began in TV doing shows like 3 South and Crank Yankers, and also Drawn Together. They both kind of come from the animated world, but Eric Summers was more kind of the very irreverent comedy world.
What a name. Crank Yankers.
It was like prank calls from Muppets.
That's a lot of layers for your comedy, isn't it? Like it's. How would you know that it's Muppets over the phone?
You don't, but it's like a visual thing. So you're watching Muppets make prank calls.
Did it do well?
I feel like it was kind of like one of those shows that was on late night TV. So if you were hanging out with friends at midnight, you might watch Crank Yankers for half an hour.
Do you currently have the munchies? Well, if you do, Crank Yankers might be your thing.
It was indeed a thing. And so the 2 of them kind of come together. They both worked on American Dad and Community. And McKenna was a producer on like 80-something episodes of Community as well.
Okay.
So they wrote a few episodes. They were both producers on both of those shows at different times. But they did crossover. And then they began working together in the screenplay world on major motion pictures. They began with Lego Batman movie. They did the Marvel Spider-Man trilogy. They did Ant-Man and the Wasp, Jumanji, Welcome to the Jungle. And this was actually their follow-up to No Way Home.
That's a pretty good lineup of films to be working on.
It is, although I will note that if you look at the credits for those films, they're usually 2 of maybe, 5 or 6 credited writers, especially when you get to like the Marvel stuff.
Which seems to be more and more the way these days, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Okay.
So they had a script, they have a director, and they needed a co-star for Chris Evans, and so obviously they went to Scarlett Johansson. And she said yes.
And the rest was history. Ghosted, everyone.
That's right.
She is there. She is there. In spirit.
Oh, nice.
I see what you did there.
Yes, she apparently was very collaborative. She was submitting notes they were really into, but had to leave due to a scheduling conflict. I'm wondering if that was Asteroid City, because that's the only thing really on her filmography I could really line up timeline-wise with this.
Well, that was filmed post-pandemic, wasn't it? Asteroid City, sorry.
I think so, yeah.
Well, this is definitely a pandemic project because I've seen videos of Dexter in a mask. So
I'm not exactly sure what the scheduling conflict was, or maybe she was tied like under contract to a movie that just didn't happen. I don't know.
When was Marriage Story done?
Oh, I think before this.
Okay.
Like a year or 2 before this. So
maybe she had nothing on the go and she just was like, I don't want to be in this movie. It's actually not that good. And just made something up.
I'm afraid of ghosts.
She ghosted.
Oh.
She kind of did.
She left them on red.
And so Dexter Fletcher basically just said, Chris Evans is a great guy and much loved by everyone he works with. So when things didn't quite work out with Scarlett, which was his other great plan, I think Anna was his next go-to, sort of. I mean, I said to him, what about Anna? And he was on the phone with her within the next 3 seconds.
If only he had that sort of expediency when it came to our interview.
No kidding. And actually, Anna initially couldn't do it because of Ballerina, and then Ballerina got moved in schedule, so then she was available to do this.
She's basically bounced like from action film to action film over the last few years since like No Time to Die. It's been obviously Blonde was in there in between, but yeah, no wonder she's pretty good when it comes to the action in this film.
Yeah. And so Dexter Fletcher, he said like this movie was just a dream to shoot. They worked hard and it tested very well. There was no reshoots, no pickups. He even said there was no deleted scenes. He said everything wound up in the movie, and he called it one of those rare magic moments.
Or you could read that as that's all I had.
I think it's amazing. Like, yeah, he really does say like this was one of the best productions he ever worked on.
I mean, that's great in terms of not having studio notes and being told to go back and reshoot half your film. Just look at what happened to, name some things happening at the moment. The Marvels had like 2 different sets of reshoots. It's not even out yet.
Aquaman 2 also.
Yeah, another great one, a very recent one. Crazy. So yeah, okay, that's a pretty good lead up.
Yeah, and he just said Apple was thrilled and was like, "Nope, we've got it. We've got it."
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so like the movie obviously didn't open in theaters, so I don't have box office. I'll just say the top 3 for the year. Number 1 was Barbie, which we mentioned earlier. Number 2, Super Mario Brothers, and number 3, Oppenheimer. I don't think that'll change before the end of this year. I think it's highly unlikely. And in the kind of the like aftermath, like Fletcher said he'd love to do a sequel. He was even like throwing out titles like Roasted or Hosted as potential follow-up titles. Scott's shaking his head aggressively.
You've got something with Ghosted. Like there's a joke there.
Yeah.
And it kind of sort of sets up their relationship. Why would you give that up? I'm just trying to think of like ghost puns you could put in there.
But Roasted would be kind of funny, and you could have that lady from the market who was in this movie. I forget her name, but she's the one that offered Cole edibles. Like you could call it Roasted, and then just have
like that kind of roasted.
yeah, and have her go on a mission.
A really laid back spy mission.
Yeah, there you go.
Low stakes, everyone. We're chilling out here.
The Pineapple Express of spy movies, yeah.
Yeah, there you go.
Listen to the Grateful Dead. It's a very, very it's like Thunderball, basically. It's a very laid back.
Yep. 24 minutes underwater, but high.
You're selling it, Shayla. I'm loving this.
I hate this film now. It's the worst.
Throw in some sharks. This is officially the greatest spy film ever.
Officially.
Ouch. And because of the fact this didn't open in theaters and we don't have any real sense of what the metrics were and how many people watched this thing, the only thing I could find is sort of a kind of a final button to put on kind of the aftermath of the movie was an interview with Chris Evans, where it was fairly recently he was talking about a new project, and they asked him about Ghosted. And he said, "Ghosted to me felt like a movie that I grew up on, a movie that maybe we don't see very much of anymore. And the question is whether or not audiences have outgrown those types of films. I mean, technically, I think we did okay in terms of viewership. Critics didn't like it, but that's more the fault of the movie as opposed to the appetite of the audience. I think the appetite's there. If it's done properly, we could have done better."
That feels like a massive non-answer to the question.
Yeah.
But there is a little bit, and I know you're not a big believer in the sort of trivia section of IMDb, but there are some viewer stats in there. Did you stumble across those, Cam?
Yeah, but it's IMDb trivia, so I could have submitted that.
Okay. Well, it's there if you want to have a look at it, folks. I'm not sure I much believe it either, because it seems very low for a film that's coming out on Apple TV+.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like user submitted, and so it's like a lot of the people I find on IMDb or Rotten Tomatoes will often pile up on a movie like this. So, like, I don't know.
Well, let's throw it to Shayla, because I don't think Shayla's read this, or I assume Shayla's not read this trivia section on IMDb. How many views would you say, according to this statistic, Ghosted had in its first 2 days? Worldwide.
Right. Well, would you believe that I have been in that trivia
Oh
section?
no!
Oh, no!
She wrote it.
But I don't really remember. So what? But was it like 200,000 something views or something? No, that sounds like too many.
It's higher than that, but not by much. But it's quite a surprisingly low number, isn't it?
Yeah, but I read somewhere, and I don't know if it was on IMDb or somewhere else, that this project was like one of the first that people actually sat and watched the whole thing, as opposed to like an Apple TV thing that you start and don't finish. People actually finished this one. I don't.
Allegedly, it says it's 20% above the average completion rate for the platform.
Right.
Which is what I put on my Tinder profile. Cam's a late bloomer for that joke. It took a little while to grow there.
It did. I was also just quickly, because I forgot looking up the budget on the movie, and it was like pretty modestly budgeted, around 40-ish million, maybe 45. So like, it wasn't a huge gamble for Apple. It's not like them spending 200 million on Killers of the Flower Moon, for example.
True. All right then, folks, we're off to see The Tax Man. Let's get ghosted. Let's talk about this film. Shayla, guests always go first. What do you think of Ghosted?
Well, overall, I will say I had a good time. I'm not always looking for, a film to redefine the wheel or to, be some crazy good, like, earth-shattering movie. Sometimes I just want to shut my brain off and have fun. I feel like that was definitely this movie.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't quite feel the chemistry between Chris and Anna. I think they played off well against each other, but not romantically. But overall, I mean, I had a good time. There were some funny bits. I particularly liked the bus slow-mo. Like, all that bus chase was really cool. Though there was one part where, like, it's like all slow-mo and Cole watches these two men like fly out of their truck and like fly by, and then they're just gone. They just vanished. They didn't fall down. They just fell into the ether. They were just gone. That was fun. But no, I thought it was.
They were ghosts.
They were ghosts. Yeah, they turned into ghosts. There we go. That's what it is. Yeah. But yeah, overall, I had a good time. It was a good bad movie. Like, it wasn't a good movie, but it was a good bad one. If that makes sense.
How do you compare it to like something like, because you were on to review the 355? Like, do you compare it along the same lines as that, or which do you see as like the superior film? I suppose.
I think the 355 was probably better, but they are kind of similar because I feel like the 355 was also a film that like I had fun with, but the reviews are like not great for. But I don't know, I had fun with both of them. Like, they were a good time. I wasn't bored.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah.
No, I have no objection to anything you just said there, because basically that's a lot of what I get from this film too. It's for me, it's a fun romp. It's not reaching for 5 stars, nor is it trying to be. It's very much happy to be sort of sat in the middle of the shelf and have a fun time with it. And you mentioned like the bus sequence. I think we'll get to that in the like section, but some of the stunt work in here is tremendous. The fights and the action are really great and better than you'd expect from a movie that's just got shoved onto Apple TV Plus Go Max, whatever it's called. I was impressed by it, and I had all this sort of bad sort of energy in my head because of the reviews of this film and also my experiences before. I was expecting a really rough time, and I actually was pleasantly surprised with the 2 hours. They flew by, and I came out with sort of a thumbs up. Overall, I mean, it's not going to haunt me.
Oh boy.
If you'll pardon the pun.
Oh man.
I have quite a few of these ghost puns, but I've overplayed my hand when it comes to puns recently, so maybe I'll pull
No,
back.
please keep them coming. Yeah, please keep them coming.
Okay, fine. I have lots.
You found your audience. It's me. I love puns.
Okay. All I need is an audience of one, because that's all we have anyway. So it's great, and I had a good time with it. And I agree though, and maybe we'll talk about that for a second. Is the chemistry problem? I think that is something that is weirdly missing from a film where they actually had good chemistry in a different film recently.
Yeah,
2 films.
Exactly. Yeah, 2 films.
Yeah, actually, both of them. I've forgotten, but yeah, they are together in The Grey Man for a while.
Yeah.
So I don't know what went wrong here.
Yeah. I think like I'm much less positive on this one. I think like this is, if you're gonna make a romantic comedy, I think it's bordering on disaster. I think these two are often awful together. And I could not, like, I was just so baffled because, like, the banter was so awful. And you had actors struggling through it and giving terrible line deliveries. And it just felt awkward. There's a point where they're on a date and he makes one quote, or not quote, but he makes, like, he mentions one little trivia note about Abraham Lincoln. And she's like, "You are really into Abraham Lincoln." And I'm like, he said one thing. Like, like, what is going on? It feels like robots talking to each other. And the entire relationship is so toxic throughout that I feel like with romantic comedies, there's a line they got to walk. Yes, you have to have tension between the two. But I have to believe at the end that I would want to see these two people together. And it is dire stuff. He's like creepy and weird off the top.
Aggressive.
Very aggressive through the course of the movie. Their bickering is usually mean-spirited. It's rarely playful and fun, the way that, like, Dexter Fletcher's mentioning Romancing the Stone. That is fun, light, comedic dialogue. These are two people yelling at each other a lot. and it's not particularly funny. And the fact that like they meet up at one point with this ex of hers, and it's just Chris Evans like snarling and like throwing kind of mean comments at her about like a guy she dated. This is someone he went out on with for one date.
Mm-hmm.
And I just found like that attitude kind of hung over the movie. And I just never bought the relationship at all. At all. There was not a single moment. I felt like I was watching two very talented movie star people who the audience is kind of giving a pass to because we know who they are. They're very likable as talents. But it was very noteworthy to me that you had two separate examples of side characters saying, "You two are so hot together.
Yeah.
Oh my God, get a room." And I'm like, they are speaking. They are speaking for the audience because none of this is on screen.
That's what I was going to say while you were talking. I was like, yeah, because there were so many characters that were like, "You two are so hot together. You should get a room." And I'm like, I don't know. They're kind of angry at each other, but
yeah.
Well, I can't disagree with that analysis, Cam, because I think we all agree there is a very much a lacking in the chemistry department. But just like a question to I guess everyone here, and maybe specifically at Cam because of how long you've been sort of studying films. If you're in this position as a director, what do you do? Because they've clearly had chemistry in other films. Where is it not coming through? Is it the direction? Is it just not working on set? What's the problem here?
Well, the script doesn't work. Like, there's no funny banter for these actors to have together. So that's a huge problem. I just think it really comes back to the script. I don't know how much this thing got worked over in terms of development, but whatever they wound up with did not work. And like, you have a very generic spy film, which, I mean, that's kind of par for the course in these kind of genre mashups. Like, we talked about The Spy Who Dumped Me, which is like this done well. That one has also a very generic spy plot, but it carries you along, and it's fun to watch those characters dropped into it. I think, like, in theory, the fun of this movie is having Chris Evans dropped into it, someone who is not an action guy, and, kind of reversing the genders, doing a Romancing the Stone where,
love that.
Yeah, Ana de Armas is the Michael Douglas, and he gets to be the Kathleen Turner. That's a fun idea, but I think there's, like, some disastrous casting on having him, honestly, as the lead of this movie, which maybe I'll get to in my dislikes later down the road, but I just think it fundamentally breaks the movie.
Well, no. Let's talk about this now for a second, because it is outrageous to put across a thesis that Chris Evans is an unlikable nerd.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah.
The idea that he is too geeky to be loved is a weird concept in itself, but like, anything Chris Evans does in this film, he looks like a superhero or like this vision of masculinity that everyone must bow down. I know I do. And it's like, I don't know how he could have this bad luck for all of his life. He clearly isn't the right guy to be casting in this role.
I kind of loved it though. Like, I think he plays nerdy quite well. Like, I kind of dug Cole as like this hilarious little creepy farmer guy. Like, I don't know, like I bought it. Like, I enjoyed his casting, I think. Like, I don't know. I liked it.
To me, like, these types of movies, you want the character who is being pulled into it to feel like an outsider. So, like, every time they are showing me, like, oh my God, Chris Evans is shooting at people. Oh my God, he's in a fist fight. It should feel like someone who's a fish out of water. There's never a moment where that's sold to me. And at the end of the movie, he shows up like in a tuxedo, like, or whatever, like a very fancy suit to go meet with this villain. And I'm like, this should be the moment where the whole audience goes, holy crap, like, it's like a Pretty Woman moment. Like, he suddenly, like Cinderella is born as he walks out in this suit. And I'm like, well, we all know Chris Evans looks great in suits. Like, this isn't a big moment. I'm not saying they should cast like the really, really schlubby guy, because then it turns into another type of wish fulfillment here going on. But like, find someone who doesn't look like a conventional action star.
No, I get that.
Well, this is like the sort of Nigel Small-Fawcett thing, isn't it? Like, you can get Rowan Atkinson to come in here and
oh my God, Scott, there's your movie.
It's great though, isn't it? Like, him and Ana de Armas. I want to see that love story happen. It's a bit creepy, but put that to one side for a second.
I want them to spray his hair and make him a contemporary of hers, and never acknowledge that they look at all different in terms of age.
What up, fellow spies?
I've been living with my parents on the farm.
That would be a film that I would be ghosting. I'm sorry. I'm out for that one.
Fair enough. But yeah, I get the point, and if it works for you, Shayla, that's perfectly fine. I'm sure it works for a lot of people. Chris Evans has the range to play geeky, but the thing that like lets me down with that is he becomes so adept very early on in the film. Like you mentioned the bus ride, which I think is a really good sequence, but like it's played as if, because they say early on in the film he wrestled in high school. Did you tell her that he wrestled in high school?
Yeah.
No, I wrestled in high school. And
alone,
I can't beat people up. Yeah, but a lot of that's disgusting. How dare you?
That's not what I meant. That's not what I meant.
Yeah.
You were like shadow wrestling. That was your specialty.
Oh, shadow. I know shadow boxing. What's shadow wrestling? Do I just grapple myself to the ground?
Basically, yeah.
Oh, okay. Cam, the professional over here. Yeah. So you just completely caused me to lose my point there. Thanks, Cam.
You're welcome.
That was a note that I made, though. He did become like really good at everything too quickly. Like, because the bus ride, when he's hanging off the edge, like the bus thing like swung out and he's just like hanging on for dear life over this big ravine. I was like, a nerdy farmer who like keeps bees would just fall. Like, whether you did wrestling or not. Like, I don't know. Like, it just seemed like he was too good at what at everything. Which maybe he was just lucky. I don't know, but.
I feel like, Shayla, you've touched on something, though, that like this is becoming a trope that I'm seeing again and again. It's not specific to Ghosted. This is an example of it. But like even the True Lies TV show that Scott and I covered, they had the Jamie Lee Curtis character brought into that TV show. And she's like a specialist in spycraft in like episode 2. She's like outdoing, her husband character, like the Arnold Schwarzenegger character.
I will specify Jamie Lee Curtis was not in this. It was someone who played the same character as her.
Yes, I think it was, Ginger something. It starts with a G. But
Gonzaga?
Nonetheless, the show's canceled. I don't need to know these things anymore.
Sure.
I think so. But to me, like, if you're going to do this type of story, True Lies jumps to mind a lot. The movie. Jamie Lee Curtis is tied into spycraft at a certain point in the movie. But, like, the thrill of it is seeing someone who through, 3/4 of the movie is, like, giving a very, like, physical performance where Jamie Lee Curtis seems so demure and so nervous and shy. You see the way she is with Bill Paxton's character, that when you get her thrown into, like, that limo chase, it's genuinely suspenseful because it seems like someone that could be in danger. With Chris Evans, I never felt this man was in danger.
When it comes to, like, revolving restaurant scene at the end, he's basically James Bond.
It's true.
Yeah.
I think there could have been more comedy in not having that there. Like having him bumble through and stumble into the sort of MacGuffin at the end. Yada, yada, yada. But we'll get to picking the film apart a little bit more. Let's talk about things that we did like. And there are stuff. I think I like a lot of this film. But Shayla, you're up first. Something you liked about this film.
My absolute favorite part of this movie that made it completely like worth the watch is the whole hitman scene where they just plow through really great stars like Sebastian Stan, Anthony Mackie, John Cho. They just kill them all in like 15 minutes. And it's so funny. And I just think about, like, was Chris Evans just one day like, oh, you guys are filming Falcon and Winter Soldier. Do you want to just hop over to my set for a second and just take like an hour of your time and just come on over? And they're like, yeah, let's do it. I think that scene was absolutely hilarious. I was like, laugh out loud, near tears, like, especially when like John Cho's character bites the dust. What was the leopard? He just, and then like God the bounty hunter, please. That's hilarious instead of Dog the bounty hunter. I just thought that scene was unbelievable. It was so funny.
It's funny, like that is a moment, and actually you are kind of correct. Chris Evans just texted them to show up.
Did he? Yeah. Amazing.
Really?
It's like a fun little Marvel reunion. Wow. How fun.
Because Chris Evans seems to be a delightful guy that everyone likes to be friends with. So yeah, he makes sense as a producer. He can just text up famous people to show up in his movie at the drop of a hat. But no, like I think that scene, I really enjoyed it too. And I think it does something that a lot of the movie doesn't do, which is it has an element of surprise. And if you're going to make this type of movie, this is an old template we've seen a billion times, and it's going to be made a billion more times in the future. If you can't take like a really fun like wrinkle on it, like, it's just not going to really click, I think, in the way it needs to. And it was a scene like this that I thought, this is where you should be looking with your movie. Like, there is genuine surprise at, because we are all used to the star cameo in one of these movies. And the fact that they, like, had Anthony Mackie show up, and I immediately was, like, suddenly, like, looking at my phone quickly, like, wait, is Anthony Mackie in this? I didn't realize he was a cast member of this. And then, boom, even before I could look it up, you had John Cho showing up. That I thought was so fun. And delivered in a way that, I won't remember a lot of this movie 6 months from now, but I will remember that sequence.
Exactly. We just have to kind of forget that, like, God the bounty hunter, who's like a specialist bounty hunter, didn't hear a car coming at him full speed. Like, we'll just have to ignore that part, but still fun.
Yeah.
Plot details. Let's not get bogged down in these things,
It's true. You just got to turn your brain off. Like I said, just turn your brain off. Don't think too hard.
Yeah.
It doesn't want you to.
This film does not want you to think.
Nope.
No, please do not think. But I completely agree as well. I think it's a really fun scene. And I was convinced that they'd shot Sebastian Stan away from the other two, like it was composited together, because there is a lot of blue screen work in this film, and you can see the seams a lot of the time, which is a budgetary thing. I understand these constraints. I'm not going to complain too much about it. But I actually found out from watching the behind-the-scenes stuff that they are in that car together. So I mean, it's also quite fun to find out from Cam telling me that he did just text these people, because obviously they have a really strong friendship. It's also fun to know that Chris Evans' friendship with Scarlett Johansson isn't strong enough to bring her back into the film. I mean, they did kill her off in the Marvel universe, so maybe that's what it is. Maybe she's bitter about that.
Possibly.
Maybe, because it should have always been Hawkeye. Should have been Hawkeye off that ledge.
Oh. Throwing down, Shayla. Okay, why should it have been Hawkeye? Come on.
I just don't like him as much. I like him, but I just think that Black Widow deserved to survive more.
What did you think of the Black Widow film?
I liked it. It wasn't like top tier Marvel or anything like that. Like, even talking about it now, I don't even really remember it, but I was never bored. I know that much. Like, I didn't come away being like, oh, that sucked. I thought it was a fine film.
It might have been top tier late stage Marvel, although looking at kind of the territory we're standing in now.
It's no Eternals.
No, it is
I didn't even see that one. But I hear awful things about that one too. So.
Just go with your gut and leave it there. It's absolutely fine. But hey, at least you get Moonraker in Black Widow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was nice. I liked that.
It's a nice touch. But Cam, I'll throw to you something you liked.
I thought the villain casting was fun, and a lot of these movies have very generic villains because obviously the star is, in theory, the chemistry between the two leads. And so you often get like a character actor popping up as kind of a disposable villain. But I thought that like Adrien Brody, I have no idea what he was doing in this movie. But if you're going to give me a kind of generic villain, give me like someone like Adrien Brody who's like, I'm going to play this as some sort of like bizarre French character that I don't even know what he's up to that much. But every time he's on screen, I'm like, that is like a movie star. That is someone who can walk on, do something strange, and I'm paying attention. And to a lesser degree in terms of, time on screen, but I thought Tim Blake Nelson showing up as like this Russian torture expert who's using insects, I was like, this guy is the best. I love Tim Blake Nelson when he shows up. He was fantastic on the Watchmen TV show from HBO a while back, but he's just one of those invaluable character actors. He's actually going to be back in the Marvel Universe pretty soon as the leader, but to me, he was so much fun, and I was genuinely disappointed that he was dispatched so quickly because I would have happily watched him a little bit more. And I will say, as someone who has dealt with ants in their apartment relatively recently, his whole ant torture element really struck a chord with me.
Oh, yikes.
It's interesting that we have finally had proof on the show. Those that have been listening since the beginning, we finally have verbal proof that Cam is terrible with accents in films, because he just gave a stamp of approval to Tim Blake Nelson in Ghosted, because that might be...
It's a terrible accent, but that's the joy of it. Like, he's just completely going over the top campy.
Okay, fine.
Even Adrien Brody was like French-ish.
Yeah.
Like, I don't like, his accent was all over the place, but he was still fun.
Yeah.
He was, I don't know, that Tim Blake Nelson guy really just threw me off because he couldn't like nail down what he was. He just sort of bounced around a lot. But I'll agree with Adrien Brody. I think he nailed it.
Yeah, and even Mike Moe, who played Bruce Lee in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood as more of the physical adversary, the one who has the fight with Chris Evans, like, I would like to see what he could do with a little more of a fleshed out part, because even just like in the action moments, he was pretty commendable.
Yeah, fair enough. And speaking of action moments, I'll chuck in my like then. And it kind of connects to this week's interview. For those who sort of didn't hear it at the beginning, we're speaking with Garrett Warren, who acted as the second unit director and the stunt coordinator for the film. Because I was watching this film and I got to the end, and one of the things that jumped out to me was just how great the fight sequences were. Like, it reminded me a lot of a film we've mentioned early on in this review, and there's a lot of connective tissue, is The Spy Who Dumped Me.
Mm-hmm.
That film is a pretty average story, great performances, and it's elevated by its physical stunt performances. Turns out Gary Powell is the man behind that film, and you can tell that sort of Bond prestige came with him to that film, carried through. He knew what to do with the money they had. And, you look at Garrett Warren's filmography. I mean, this guy worked on Logan, a film we mentioned earlier, Avatar. He's had a long-running career working in stunts and second unit direction. And that has come through here. He has elevated those sequences that he has been in control of. So much so that I had to immediately email him when I finished watching this film to say, hey, this is fantastic. Do you want to come and speak with us? And he said, yes. Very pleased to bring you that interview later this week. But that's not happened to me before. I've not watched a film, and by the end I think I need to email the stunt coordinator because it was that good.
And Dexter Fletcher in interviews talked a lot about this bus sequence, and that that was, it seems like, his primary sort of focus on this movie.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that comes from musicals, and so he's very technically minded. So in some films we talk about, it's very much the director hands off the action stuff to the second unit and it's just gone. Whereas it seems like Dexter Fletcher was very involved in that and very passionate about that sequence. Maybe at the expense of some of the other things in the movie, I don't know. But it seems like he cared about that bus sequence. And I am at a point where I am so used to bad action in movies that it is a surprise when you see something that's well put together. And I think that is a little more where the Raiders Lost Ark element comes into play. Like, you can look at that truck chase in Raiders, which is on a higher tier. I think everyone involved would agree with that, but you can still see that there's an attempt to create a memorable truck chase in this movie, and it does click.
Trying to use that sort of setting in interesting ways, I think it's very successful at doing that. And of course, you also get a little shout out to A View to a Kill in there as well.
That's right.
Did
Everyone's processing that when Bond is hanging off the ladder of the fire truck.
Oh,
and then Chris Evans is hanging off.
Oh, yes.
I had to explain that.
Yes.
Everyone at home got that, obviously, because you're all great spy movie fans.
We interrupt this program to bring you a special report.
Calling all agents. Keeping the lights on at SpyHards HQ ain't cheap. And frankly, nor is feeding the school of attack piranhas. So we need your help.
Roger that, Scott. Only at the SpyHards Patreon can you gain access to exclusive shows like Agents in the Field, which tackles non-spy films starring your favorite spy icons, and The Debrief, where we channel our inner solitaires and predict how the big spy movie news of today will impact tomorrow.
So make like a Treadstone agent and activate your Patreon membership at patreon.com/spyhards today. Cam, tell the people what we have in our sights this week.
Scott, we are returning to Kevin Costner's 1990s glory days to revisit 1992's The Bodyguard. Will we always love this movie? We will have to find out.
But before this message self-destructs, Cam, resume the spy chinks. But I'll throw it out to anyone else. Any other likes?
I'll say like just in terms of the physical action stuff, it works. You believe Ana de Armas is involved in action scenes.
Absolutely.
It's not a movie that is failing its actors at conveying them as action heroes in the movie. It does work.
No, and you can see that, I mentioned it earlier, she's been doing a lot of these sort of action spy films or just action films recently. We've got Ballerina coming up soon, which is, again, kind of dipping its toe into the spy world as well. She seems to be the new action hero of our age, and I'm glad to see it.
Yeah. I guess we'll see how long it lasts. I don't know that a couple of these have clicked with audiences, but you're one roll away, right?
Yeah, well, No Time to Die, I think, is just one of the highlights of that film. And, Shayla, you were talking about that earlier. I don't think you could argue that Paloma was a downside to the film.
No.
Yeah, no, she was an upside for sure. Loved her. Absolutely loved her.
I was just going to point out, and we mentioned it earlier, but I did like that role reversal of the male and female, the power dynamic shifting. I just wish that we had a male that isn't as, like, his story isn't that he's a bitter man. A little bit like he's very angry at the relationship. And I get, like, being needy and being that kind of guy that needs affirmation, or that kind of person, not just guys. Everyone needs affirmation from time to time. But he's not exactly endearing.
I get the whole message of the man over the mission kind of stuff, or the mission over the man, whichever one it is. But it's a little weird to have, like, this role reversal. You've got the female action hero and have nothing but the guy poking holes in her profession and job performance throughout the entire run of the movie.
It's true, because, like, she's not wrong. Like, for her being a spy, it is the mission over the man. Like, whether he likes it or not. Like, yes, obviously save your family and people you care about, but also, like, I don't know, it was her job.
It feels like we're verging on the dislike section, so let's take us over dislike. Shayla, you're up. Something you didn't quite like about Ghosted.
I didn't really like the scene with the ex-boyfriend, the one that had to get Cole back to America. I think that should have stayed a deleted scene. Like, I know the director said there were no deleted scenes. That could have been one, and I think it would have been a bit.
Shayla has a note.
I do. Just because, like, I found him, like, not endearing. I didn't like his character. I found his hand really annoying. I thought it was really weird that it only started creaking when he started, like, doing the motion he was doing. Like, I didn't like it. And plus he was Jafar in Aladdin.
Was
and
he?
I had a hard time.
Oh, that's the same guy. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Wow, okay.
Yeah. So, like, that was, like, hard to, like, I don't know, that made it weirder for me for some reason. But I don't know. I didn't like him, and I was happy to see him go.
There was a lot of, like, zingers coming out of him that weren't funny. And it was, like, wall-to-wall lines that you're like...
Yeah, they're not zingers.
Okay, like, that's not particularly funny, yeah.
Exactly. Like, he slowed down the pace of the movie or something. Like, I'm like, you think you made a character that's, like, funny, but I just want you to go away. Like, where's those bounty hunters? Can we bring them in early to get rid of him? Like, I didn't find him fun.
I will say the whole setup is flawed, because his main characteristic, and Shayla, you sort of mentioned it, but you didn't want to go out and flatly say it, about his lack of a hand. And he laments his inability to use said hand. I mean, I assume he has an other hand to fulfill that purpose.
Yeah.
I'm not sure why you would lament that loss.
Right?
I just find that a completely flawed argument. And I know I'm not painting the exact picture, folks. I'm hoping you're putting the pieces together.
I mean, there would be one hand that you would be better at it with than the other. So I get that he lost his dominant hand, but he could figure it out, I'm sure.
But, like, if you lose your dominant hand, your other one becomes your dominant hand and gets better at stuff. Like, if you become blind all of a sudden, your other senses get better. Like, surely his left or his right, whatever's the subdominant hand, is now the best.
You would think. But
how have we got here? Why are we here?
We're back to Scott and his shadow wrestling.
Oh, he's ghosting in the corner. Well, save us, Cam. Something you didn't like.
I mean, we've talked about the chemistry between the two, which I just think is really dead. Bafflingly so. I just don't even understand, like, how these two are so flat together. But we've kind of talked about that, so I'm going to just pinpoint a scene just like Shayla did. We have just celebrated mere moments ago, like, the Hitman scene and how fun those cameos were. The Ryan Reynolds cameo at the end of this movie should have been on the cutting room floor. Dexter Fletcher says there's no deleted scenes. This was a deleted scene, calling out to be a deleted scene. Look, people, filmmakers out there, having a Ryan Reynolds cameo is no longer special. He does them constantly.
It's so true.
He is just like everywhere. Hobbs and Shaw, I remember, but there's so many where he pops up quickly. And this felt like, and I believe this was the case, he was in, texting back and forth with Chris Evans, and he's like, oh, I want to do something in this movie. That doesn't mean it has to make the finished film. And I seriously doubt Ryan Reynolds is sitting down with the family to watch Ghosted to see if his cameo is in the movie. I don't even understand, like, the real comedic conceit of this. It's just, like, I guess the joke is he doesn't have genitals anymore. But, like, it lands right in the middle of the big climactic action sequence, and it just disrupts all the flow. The whole movie stops dead. It reminded me a little bit of, do you remember the era, earlier in the DVD era, where they would put out, like, comedies like 40-Year-Old Virgin or something, and it would be the extended for DVD version, where they would just throw in, like, 20 minutes of deleted scenes that would completely disrupt the flow of the movie? That's what this felt like.
I did really like his I got 20 vision, though, that line, instead of 2020, because he has an eye patch. I thought that was funny. But then from there, all of his dialogue was downhill. But his suit looked like James Bond in Tomorrow Never, or in The World Is Not Enough. That was cool.
It did, yeah. It was more like placement. Like, it's not particularly funny, but there's other characters that aren't funny in this movie. Why place that character there?
True.
It begs the question. If Chris Evans is texting all of his friends to come and be on this film, did any of his friends ghost him and not reply? Which Avenger said no to this?
Well, all of the main ones.
Yeah, where's Robert Downey Jr. in Ghosted?
Chris Hemsworth.
Yeah, okay. I don't think they would have. Could you imagine Chris Hemsworth popping up in that assassin scene? I would have liked that. That would have been nice.
Maybe, yeah. Maybe he's too much of a star, and I know Ryan Reynolds is a big star too, but he likes playing weird, kind of quirky bits. Whereas, like, if you suddenly have Chris Hemsworth walk out, that is like the biggest action star in the room.
Would have been funny, though, to just, like, also have him come on and just, like, kill him in a scene. Because, he's really good at comedic stuff. And maybe if they would have actually had him instead of Ryan Reynolds, maybe, like, he could have made that scene better.
I wonder, too, how Chris Hemsworth would have played the lead role in this movie. Because I think of him in, like, for example, the Ghostbusters 2016 movie. He's like really funny in that, and despite being this towering, mountain of a man, can play very like goofy. And I wonder if it would almost feel a little bit like Channing Tatum in The Lost City, which I thought like that was a movie doing the romancing the stone story, but like with a fun twist where like the Channing Tatum character is a complete idiot, like a total himbo. Yeah. And I wonder if like that's something like Chris Hemsworth would have brought, a little more of that kind of sensitive himbo-ish quality versus like Chris Evans has a lot of strengths, but I don't think he's very good at kind of playing naive and very like, just like a shrinking violet kind of type.
Well, I've not seen him do it successfully yet. Let's put it that way. He could still crack it. But yeah, now you mention it, Chris Hemsworth in Ghostbusters is a very good shout because he's definitely got that sort of, we know he's a physical specimen. He is a Adonis of a man. We could stare at him for hours, frankly. But, just me maybe. But I understand that he can play funny and geeky, and the film pays it off as if like everyone thinks he's the ugliest guy in the universe, and you kind of buy into it.
Yeah.
So, and this film kind of wants to do the same thing with Chris Evans, despite the fact that that's impossible.
I like that, like they're like constantly saying he's a farmer. He's a farmer. I'm like, boy, like that was the only angle they had. They're like, they didn't come up with like. When you look at like Romancing the Stone, the Kathleen Turner character is like a romance novelist. This is a woman who lives a life of fantasies. And so it makes so much sense why you would take that character and drop her in like an actual romance novel plot. Or when you look at The Lost City, where it's Channing Tatum as like a male model who winds up, this character who plays the character on the cover of Sandra Bullock's novels. Makes sense to drop him in this adventure. I don't know, like, is there a real, like, connection between a farmer being dropped in a spy movie?
Well, they did try and build in that sort of, his background in agriculture into the plot at some point.
I didn't understand that, Scott. I will legit say I did not understand when he revealed the code.
No, I didn't quite get it. It reminded me a lot of Bond knowing some like really obscure plant names in one of the Bond films. I can't recall off the top of my head now.
Yeah.
Like it seems like knowledge that no one should know off the top of their heads.
And also just like spotting the plant in the room and saying like the genetic whatever is the code for the Aztec device. I'm like, wait, how did he make the jump that that's the password?
Well, this is where that problem comes in of him just being a very adept spy all of a sudden, because not only is he able to beat up trained assassins, he also has the sort of aptitude to deduce things like that at the drop of a hat. The plot requires someone to have that knowledge. I would just rather it have been Ana de Armas.
Yeah.
That have figured it out, because she is the one who's been doing it for a very long time.
True.
But it was like a plant in a picture that's how. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I thought that I kind of liked that because like he was gonna write a book in the history of like agriculture or something, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's the setup and payoff of it. That's like how they get you in there. But it just feels like he gets a lot from just a tiny little photo that he understands how it inputs into the Aztec device, and it's all a big MacGuffin thing that makes no sense anyway. But it's just weird that he's able to put that all together with no sort of foundation in that world.
Okay, I gotcha.
I think that's what Cam's getting at anyway.
Yeah.
Oh no, okay.
My thing connects to Ana de Armas, and it's something that no one's mentioned yet, and it's the biggest annoyance I have with this film. And that is the wig maker.
I heard people mention this, and I don't have wig dar. I do have hair dye R, whatever that would be. Like, Chris Evans's hair was noticeably very dark. It looked dyed to me throughout the entire movie. But the wig thing, speak to that, Scott.
Bro, how could you not notice the awful, awful wig work in this film? Anna is...
You don't notice mine, do you?
Not... You wish you had Ana de Armas' wig. Hey, I do. I'll take it. I'll take anything. But it's some of the... I mean, I remember seeing the trailer for this film and being like, this is a choice. What have they put on her head? Please get it off her head. And I thought at some point that she would take it off as like a disguise, like it was. They were like, "Oh, that sort of Mission Impossible, take the rubber mask off." It's me underneath. It was me, Austin. But no, it's genuinely her hair, and you can even see the bump of where they've hidden her hair in the back of her head. It's so messily done, and it's so clearly not her hair color as well. Her eyebrows don't match it, and I know that's not always the case, and we're not going to do a Chris Hemsworth in Thor where they dye his eyebrows blonde. It looks ridiculous.
Yeah.
But there are ways of mitigating it and blending things together. This film makes no effort to blend it together, and then to add insult to injury, and I know I'm going off on one about wigs, people.
You are very passionate about the wigs. I'm loving this.
It gets worse, because at the end of the film, there is a future scene where she has her natural hair, and it looks great. And you just think, where has this been for 2 hours? She has great, fine black hair that she should have outstyled proudly. And they hide it the entire film. And for it actually feels like it all falls into place at that last second, because it looks like her head.
Mm-hmm.
Discuss.
I had all these same thoughts. You're not alone. You are not alone, Scott.
Thank you.
I felt the same way. I didn't understand why they had the blonde stuff going on. And in the last scene, I was like, there it is. She looks, that's her hair. That's great. I don't know why they decided to do that. But I'm with you. I did notice that.
It's nice I'm not the only one with a wig dar.
Nope. I got a good wig dar.
Was anyone with me with the hair dye dar?
Is that hair dar?
Sure. I don't know.
Well, I can't say it jumped out to me, actually. I'm sorry.
Okay.
I didn't notice it with Chris, but I definitely have the hair dye dar, hair dar, whichever it is, like for other movies. Like if, the hair is so dark and the eyebrows are so dark and it just doesn't work. But with Chris, I didn't notice so much. But maybe that's just because Anna's was just like so glaringly bad.
It was like ill-fitting as well. Like it wasn't just the color. It was like badly made and applied. I don't want to besmirch the filmmakers in that sense, because these are people that are below the line doing hair and makeup, but it's just like at a direction level, he should have been like, this is a bad look, we got to rethink this and I'll come up with a better wig, or have her natural hair. there's lots of reasons behind the scenes they could have been having a wig. Maybe they were trying to protect her hair to doing another shoot or something like that. I don't know what it is, but it just looks bad.
Well, I think you have a certain responsibility, and it goes upwards. Like, the director should have been noting this as well. Like, if you are making a movie like this with two massive movie stars that you want to be this kind of glamorous romantic comedy, they need to look good. You look at something like Mr. and Mrs. Smith, which we haven't talked about on the show. I'll just say, like, it's not one of the all-time greatest films in the history of cinema, but those two stars look incredible in every frame of that movie. And we've seen other films like that in the spy genre. You know, there's Bond films, for example. Look at Ana de Armas and Daniel Craig in No Time to Die. They look like $1 million. And if you're going to make a movie where you are selling us about two attractive people who, you know, should be together because they're so attractive, put a little more effort into perhaps the wig making or the dye jobs.
Apparently, Dexter Fletcher's wig dar is not on point.
Maybe not. Maybe not.
Well, I think we'll go to final notes before we look at the knock list. I had a couple of things I wanted to go through, but Shayla, do you have any notes for us?
I thought that the finale was kind of fun with the revolving restaurant.
Yeah.
I don't think that a revolving restaurant can go at those speeds.
I hope not.
Yeah,
I hope
no.
not, yeah. It's like a gravitron.
Right? That's what I was going to say. It's a really sick gravitron, though. Like, could you imagine being on a gravitron that you could see out of? Like, with, like, because the ones I was in as a kid, you just were stuck to the wall and you couldn't see anything. But the concept of a gravitron that you can see through, I think is pretty cool. However, I do think it would probably just stall and not speed up. But I still thought that that was fun because it was something that I've never seen before. And I read apparently, too, that revolving restaurant is in downtown Vancouver, which...
Oh, it's that one?
I think. I saw that on IMDb trivia, so that could be a lie.
Oh, I mean, we do have one. I didn't realize it was shot at that location because I know there's like others in the world, but that makes sense because they do shoot so many things here.
Yeah, but then like Vancouver wasn't in the shooting location list either, but so I don't know if that's true or false, but I did think that was like kind of a fun finale just to sort of, you know, shut your brain off too and be like, oh, look at them spinning. And like, I liked just how they had to like pull each other with momentum. I thought that was cool. And it was just like a cool thing. That would be my only other note. I just thought the finale was kind of cool.
I agree. I think it was a really fun sequence and something, like you said, we haven't seen before. It's an interesting take, and I'm glad to know that Cam can go there now in Vancouver and say, hey, give me the ghosted. Let's crank this puppy up.
Yeah. You can picture up to the wall.
Yeah.
The effects were a little rough in spots, but it's showing me something I haven't seen before.
Yeah.
So,
exactly.
like, I appreciated that. And plus, I do appreciate any movie that gives the villains really over-the-top deaths. And both Adrien Brody and Mike Moe got pretty cool deaths in this sequence.
Yep, I agree.
Yeah, that was especially the gears. I think like a pretty bad way to go.
Oh, that's awful.
That reminded me of Elliot Carver, sort of, in like a different kind of way. Hilarious though too that he went through those gears and no blood, nothing, just like it could just splash. Like I don't know. I guess they didn't want to buy fake blood for that scene, but I can't imagine no blood would come out of having your body separated by some gears.
That was a rating thing, right?
Oh man. Oh, okay, that would do
it would be ratings. And I mean, Chris Evans would have looked like a Jackson Pollock painting walking away from that.
That's fair.
That would have been a different ending altogether. In terms of notes, firstly, I have two questions. Might even have three if I have time. The first question is, how many times do you think they say the word tax man in this film?
A lot. I did appreciate they brought up the Aztec device, which is the MacGuffin of the movie. And we have seen so many things lately, like Spy Kids Armageddon or Heart of Stone, where they say the name of the MacGuffin over and over and over. I was appreciative they did not say Aztec a billion times, but they kind of made up for it with Taxman.
Is there do you have an official count?
I have the number.
Oh.
I have the number.
19.
19, okay.
You say 19? Okay, I'm going to go a little bit. Should I go lower? I'll say 15.
Wow, you just you killed yourself there, Cam. It's 42 times.
Whoa!
Oh, wow. What? Wow.
If you do the math, it's like basically once every 2 minutes roughly they say the word taxman in this film.
That's crazy. I must have blocked it out after a while. I remember hearing it 42 times.
Me too. Did they only use the term taxman so they could play that song at the end?
Yeah, they build up to that joke, basically. That's the whole point.
Chuckles abound.
Yeah. I did have a dislike for the score, actually. There's a lot of soundtrack choices that are very heavy-handed in this film.
You didn't like My Sharona?
I like the song.
It felt like they found their inspiration for the needle drops in this movie by wandering through grocery stores.
It feels like there's I think Uptown Funk drops in at some point, and it's just
Yeah, I didn't like that one.
There's that song, "Are You Gonna Be My Girl?" that showed up as well. I was like,
that's in a lot of these things.
Oof.
I liked that one because I thought that was a fun fight scene song. She's kicking ass on the plane or whatever, and "Are You Gonna Be My Girl?" I liked it.
All right, Shayla's coming out swinging for it. No.
I was less positive.
I'll let you have it, Shayla. That's fine. You can have that one. The other question I had, and this is a general sort of we're all people in the world kind of question, and this film deals with, and its namesake is ghosting. Have you ever been ghosted? I've been ghosted.
No, I don't think so.
The Lothario over here.
I keep hoping you will ghost me, but no. To the best of my memory, I don't think so. No.
I don't think so either. Because you have to go on dates and want to date people to get ghosted, and I just would rather not. So
fair enough. These two are cool as a cucumber. I'm out here sweating, just waiting for someone to reply to a text.
Well, on the press tour, both Ana de Armas and Chris Evans said they'd been ghosted before.
Wow. Imagine.
So it happens to everyone.
Who is ghosting Ana de Armas, please?
Wouldn't be me.
Well, what are you
someone
doing
out
with
there.
Your life? Yeah, that's fair. And just a question for again, more of a romance question: is going to London after meeting someone on a first date romantic or stalker material?
Oh,
Stalker.
Big time.
Stalker.
It is unforgivable, and the only reason this movie is able to skate by on it is because he looks like Chris Evans. Had you had Paul Giamatti in that role, which is always my go-to for some reason, and I'm sorry, Paul Giamatti, I'm looking forward to the Holdovers. I'm sure it's great, but yes, you swap out those actors, and this is terrifying.
No, it's true though. You're absolutely right. Oh my gosh. Oh yeah. Oh my god. I don't even know how she forgave it. I think that's wild.
Yeah.
Oh, the date wasn't that good. I mean, it was good enough, I guess, that she changed her whole outfit and shoes somehow throughout the duration. I assume she must have had them in her car or something, but it's kind of weird.
But it's one date, and the way that they talk about it through the rest of the movie, it's oh, is he your boyfriend and all that? And he's like, yeah. It's what? They went out once.
True. Oof.
I'm getting the feeling that these two are really cool in dating scenarios. They do not overshow affection for a while because they're both no way. I'm maybe it could be romantic. I'm the loser over here. Whoopsie.
I'm an Aquarian, so it takes me a very long time to show any kind of anything to anybody. So I think that's what it is. Remain cool as a cucumber, get to know them as friends, and then make the leap to London.
Sure.
Don't make the leap after the first date.
Don't go straight to London.
Yeah, no, don't.
Yeah. And I'm a Scorpio, so we're notoriously notoriously aloof.
I have no idea what being a Virgo means, but I am one, so
nothing good. Nothing good.
It's the worst. No one wants to be a Virgo, apparently. Stay away. Yeah. Stay away. And I will also finally throw it, and I know I'm stamping on because I'm sure Cam has a note or two. I don't know if you remember, Cam, but we did walk past that place in London.
Yeah.
On our little walk around tour when you came here a few months ago.
Yeah, although we were celebrating it more for being a location from Spider-Man Far From Home than we were for Ghosted.
That's very true. That is very true. But yeah, we did sort of walk across that underpass where he gets kidnapped.
Yeah, that's true.
Small world.
That's fun.
Yeah.
Yeah. We didn't know at the time that we were doing the Ghosted tour, but There you go. Small world. But Cam, do you have a note for us at all?
Well, I want to circle back to what we were talking about. Like, it only works because Chris Evans looks like Chris Evans.
Okay.
What about the whole, like, bedroom selfie that he has as his, like, background on his phone?
That's weird. That's freaking weird. Even I know that's weird. But it's no consent. That's the real issue I have with it. Like, he's taking it without her saying it's fine. She's asleep. That's weird.
Look, I'm sure, like, men could write this movie, but is part of the problem is you don't have, like, a female writer to, like, oversee the kind of, like, the gender swapping of these roles? Because, I don't know, like, maybe that would have added something, because it does feel like it's a lot of creepy behavior that maybe, like, a male writing team and male director are just like, yeah? And? What's the problem?
Yeah, but then, like, the photo thing is mocked by the sister, so I that doesn't get by without being mentioned.
But it lets him off the hook because he's a romantic, Scott.
Yeah, that is true. It is pretty unforgivable. I'm trying to think if there's any other like bad things that happen in that sort of sense. The photo is pretty bad.
Mm-hmm.
The sort of George Costanza leave behind is also pretty bad.
That was also weird because he's like, oh my God, what am I going to do? I've got to get my asthma inhaler at her house. And I'm like, what? But you could easily get one from a pharmacy.
That he never needs again for the rest of the film, I'll also add.
Right.
Oh, you're right.
And why was there a tracker on it? Like, these things are pretty disposable. I feel like people with asthma have other means of getting inhalers.
He just liked putting trackers on everything. He had a tracker on his cash box, too. It's just like what he did in his spare time, just tracked his stuff. Just for fun, I guess.
Huh.
It's pretty creepy.
Yeah. But it is still, like I'm still with you though. Like he should have just gone to the pharmacy and gotten another inhaler. He didn't need to go to London to get his inhaler back.
But it's crazy that he doesn't like any of the action sequences just go like, oh, hang on, and take a puff of it just to sort of pay it off. He doesn't want to do it.
That would have shown maybe a little bit of vulnerability to the character that would have helped.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Yeah, like I can't do this. I'm actually having an asthma attack. Please help Ana de Armas, and then I'll do my pump and get my breath back. Yeah,
have a scene of her talking him through like an asthma attack because
having a panic attack because of it as well. Like it's coming down on him. Yeah,
they're in danger, and only her training can get them through this because he is having a complete breakdown. Like, give me that scene.
We're rewriting this movie to be a better movie.
We fixed it, guys.
Chris Hemsworth instead of Chris Evans. An inhaler scene. Man, we are fixing this. The Earth is healing.
and make sure that they're not a Virgo.
And the fact that Dexter Fletcher said there was no deleted scenes, it's not even like they cut an inhaler scene from later in the movie. It's like he's saying, nope, we had it all.
Nope. Well, we clearly didn't.
Yeah. A couple notes I had. I was very excited to see the steps from The Exorcist. I thought that was wonderful. And yeah, like just give me more famous movie locations, even in like kind of a clunky thing like this. I'm like, ooh, that reminds me of a movie I really love.
Oh, that was when I enjoyed cinema. Yeah.
Yeah, and you know what? Like I got to visit the steps from John Wick Chapter 4 during my Europe trip, so maybe I should just do like a tour of famous steps of movies. So I need to go to Washington D.C. and see the Exorcist steps, and to Philadelphia to see the steps from Rocky.
Do you know what you should call the steps? I ruined my own joke. Do you know what you should call the trip?
The 39 steps?
39.
Yeah, that was the joke.
Yeah, I knew you were going with that.
Everyone's groaning at home that I ruined the joke, but just imagine if I pulled it off, guys. Just imagine how fun that would have been.
We'll never know now.
Nope.
Yep, nope. Dead.
Oh, well.
Just dead. Change of subject. A couple other notes I had. Chris Evans is a beekeeper in this movie. In January, we're going to have a new Jason Statham spy film called The Beekeeper. What is it with beekeepers and spies these days?
Was this your stand-up act?
What's the deal with beekeepers?
What's the deal with the bees? I'm not answering that one. You've ruined my joke. I'm going to ruin yours.
Okay, fair enough. The other note I had was, we find out Chris Evans has never traveled. Like, that is his great insecurity, which must be a wonderful insecurity to have in life. If my greatest insecurity is that I've never traveled, like, problem solved. But we find out that he had a trip to, like, a trip to Spain during spring break that he canceled on. And suddenly he's like, oh, I've got that voucher. Wouldn't that voucher be like 20 years old, and would it still be good?
Well, let me tell you a little bit of inside baseball when it comes to airlines.
Yeah.
They're notoriously stiff with their money. I have been fighting for the last year to keep a voucher that I got given during the lockdown because I wasn't able to fly, funnily enough, to Vancouver.
Mm.
And that has been a struggle. That's 2 years.
Yeah.
This is like 20 years ago he went to go on spring break. Impossible. Took me out of the film completely. -5 stars.
No stars for you.
And also, like 20 years of inflation, I'm sure that voucher was probably for like $100.
It will cover his baggage.
Yeah. Weird plot point. Like, why not just have him acknowledge that I can pay for a ticket? I'm okay.
I think Cam, you need to sort of workshop your stand-up act a little bit, though.
Okay, fair enough. Fair enough.
Mm.
Also, why is he working in that market? Like, he's doing it again.
What's the deal with markets?
What's that market?
Like, is he making any money at that market we see him at? Like,
no, because he abandons
left.
it.
He left. He abandons it, and then he takes over that other woman's booth and like is trying to talk people out of buying that woman's stuff. I'm like, this guy should not be working in the market. He should just be like in a field somewhere, alone.
What you are listening to is three people unraveling, trying to put any sense to a film they've just watched. It's insane. I don't know, Cam, but that whole him leaving the tent and just going off on a date, they did add a line in though with the family just to sort of cover up that sort of plot point. Did anyone catch that?
He said, was it he got his father or something like that to?
Yeah, the dad said, "Oh, don't worry, I packed up the thing like you asked."
Yeah,
so that must have been like oh, we forgot about that.
Yeah, and that was like Tate Donovan playing his father. And I thought it was weird that they seemed to like style him almost on like an Amish man or something like that. Like the styling going on with Tate Donovan.
With no mustache, like they'd taken it off. It's weird.
It was weird. And you had Amy Sedaris as his mom, who typically she's someone who's like known for being really funny, and I don't think this movie gave her anything funny.
She's in the blooper reel, and all of her lines are different.
Oh.
So I have a feeling it's all sort of ad-libbed.
Interesting.
Okay.
And she's actually quite funny in the outtakes.
Okay.
She's very saucy in the outtakes. A lot of crass humor, let's put it that way.
Adrien Brody said he did a lot of improv and that all of it was cut.
I thought there were no cuts, Cam. I thought it was a perfect film.
I think there was bloopers, but there weren't any scenes that were not featured in the finished film.
Right. Okay. Well, we've clearly lost our minds. Cam is over there working on his stand-up act. Let's knock this one off the list. Shayla, over to you. As you're the guest, you always go first. Do you think Ghosted should be making the knock list?
Absolutely not. It should not be making the knock list. It should be ghosted from the knock list if that's even possible. Great film. Keep it away from any lists of goodness. Like, there's positive lists and negative lists. Keep them on the negative one, not the knock one.
Mm-hmm.
That's a positive one.
Resolute in your answer. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So that's a no. No to Ghosted. Cam, what about you? Can you save this film? Can you resurrect the spirit?
I'm the wrong person to ask. Yeah, it's a no for me. I will say this. Like, I looked at my Letterboxd after I'd watched the movie, and it is like a sea of people who would like give me it like half-star reviews and things like that. Like, just like the angriest, like spiteful critiques of this movie. And I'm like, come on, guys. There's so many worse things out there. Like, it falls completely flat in the chemistry department, but like, it's more generic to me than like something truly offensive. I just thought, like, to me, it just, nothing really clicked. And I'm kind of watching a lesser example of things I've seen done far better, and there's a lot of absurdities or elements to the movie that we're scratching our head over, but this is not like the worst of the worst. You and I have talked about far worse things on this show. Like, I would happily rewatch this over, I don't know, Spy Kids 3, or I'm sure there's other things you can think of. Those Harry Palmer TV movies.
The Men in Black films?
The second one, and probably the fourth, yeah.
Yeah. It is a shame, but what can you do? I don't think it is a 1-star film by any stretch of the imagination. I don't know where they're coming from with those reviews.
I think it may be, honestly, a bit of blowback against this sort of era of, one could say, generic streaming content, where you're seeing a lot of films show up on Netflix, or in this case, Apple, or Amazon, where they feel like they're kind of delivering lowest common denominator action films that don't really strive for a lot more. And it may just be a general sense of fatigue about that sort of thing. And I don't even know if this movie is the example of the worst of that kind of output, so much as it was one of the more recent, big, noisy, star-studded ones.
No, and I do agree, Cam. And there is this sort of, it's changed a little bit now because Apple and Netflix are making films that are getting cinematic releases and then being put on their system. There's one at the moment that The Killer, the David Fincher film, is having a small theatrical release and then going straight to Netflix. I think at the end of this week of recording, and I think they're going to spend a bit more time on the films if they're going to get a theatrical release, not just thrown out for everyone to watch at whenever they want. So maybe this is sort of the end of that wave of just direct to streaming. Like, I don't think we're going to get a Grey Man 2 or Citadel 2 or anything like that. I think that sort of stuff is done.
Yeah, or Red Notice as well was another famous example. Yeah.
Despite it being number 1 on Netflix.
Sure.
Whatever that means.
Heart of Stone, another one that, jumped out to us. Yeah.
Sure. Well, okay, that's 2 no's. So Ghosted won't be making the knock list, and my vote is completely pointless. So I'm going to say yes, because I really love the Beatles, and hearing The Taxman is great. Of course I can't say that. It was a fun film. I agree with Shayla. It's a fun film. There's things to like in this film. I think we did talk about the good stuff, and we talked about the bad, and put them together, and there you have Facts of Life. But I can't in good conscience say this is the need-to-see spy film of 2023. There's too many problems in there. I think the script is really where it comes down, is sort of the foundation coming out from this film, and it all falls apart from there. So, yeah, it's a note from me as well. 3 no's. Ghosted is not making the knock list, and as such, a dossier on the film is complete and filed as classified. Shayla. 5th time's a charm. Or 4th. Or 6th. We don't know.
The mystery. Woo.
007th, perhaps?
Oh! Or you could be 006 and we have to kick you off of a radar dish.
Oh.
I'll take it. I mean, I'll have to break in 8 different pieces the way that Sean Bean kind of disintegrated, but whatever. I'm here for it.
You get a glorious death.
Yeah.
So there's that. Yeah.
Love it.
Memorable. But it's been great to have you back on the show, Shayla. If people want to hear more from you, where can they find you online?
They can find me on Twitter and Instagram as Shayla, ShayLayy. Those are the big ones, I guess. I'd say if you come chat spy movies, chat Bond, chat tattoos, anything. I'm down to chat.
Shayla has some killer Bond tattoos. I think you can see some of them on the Instagram page there. You've outdone yourself. For England.
For England.
Is that your motto going into the tattoo sessions? Just like
Absolutely. And I'm excited actually because coming up next month, I am getting. I don't even know if I should announce this. No, but I will. I'm getting Sanchez's iguana tattooed on my other arm. Yeah.
Wow.
I'm very excited.
I'm excited. I want to see
speechless.
this. Yeah, that's tremendous. You can pretend it talks to you as well.
Yeah, like I'm excited. It's gonna have the diamond choker and everything. It's gonna be my new pet. I'm very like did it ever have a name? Like did he give it a name? Or was it just iguana?
I don't remember a name.
Me neither. But I just like
Throw it out to the universe. Listeners, did the iguana have a name? Let us know at SpyHards, at Shayla. Let us know, because we want to know if that iguana had a name.
Yeah.
But it's been a pleasure, Shayla. Thank you once again. And everyone, you'll find links in the show notes below if you want to find Shayla online. And I'm sure she'll be tagged in all of our social media posts because that's what we do. Shayla, thank you very much.
Thank you so much. It's been a blast as always. And I can't wait for number 6 or 7 or 8 or whatever time I'm on again.
67, whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah. Well, there you go, folks. That was our chat about 2023's Ghosted. Cam, what a time.
It was indeed, Scott.
We lost our minds by the end of the episode, but I think we had some fun. But the question, as always, goes to you, Mr. Smith. What are we talking about next week?
Scott, we are closing out a franchise, hopefully. We are looking at the second and third Cats and Dogs films. We're looking at Cats and Dogs 2, The Revenge of Kitty Galore from 2010, and Cats and Dogs 3, Paws Unite from 2020. This franchise has taken us on a real journey, and let's see where we wind up by the end of this episode.
We chose to put these two films together because Cats and Dogs 3, despite having a UK theatrical release, was actually put out on basically DVD and Blu-ray everywhere else around the world, probably on streaming as well. So it's kind of on the cusp of something we would cover. So we decided just to roll them both into one review and just continue to lose our minds a bit more.
That's right.
But don't worry, folks, we will find out if both of those films make the knock list. Can a 10-year hiatus between 2 and 3 cause it to rise to the level where it could be joining some of the greatest films of all time? We will find out next week. Your mission, should you choose to accept it, is to join us next week as we take a look at Cats and Dogs 2, The Revenge of Kitty Galore, and Cats and Dogs 3, Paws Unite. And if you like what you heard on this episode, please consider joining the SpyHards, DieHards, and leave us a 5-star review wherever you're listening to this podcast. And do not forget to follow us discreetly, as always, on social media at SpyHards. That's SpyHards on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. But until next week, folks, I'll be working with Cam to improve his stand-up.